Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of VGChatz, this time featuring Dead Space. I am joined, as always, by my wonderful colleague Lee, uh,
Hi.
who was the one who reviewed Dead Space.
Indeed.
You want to say hi?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, sure. How's it going, everyone? And hope you're doing well. Yada yada yada. And yeah, Dead Space. Like Paul said, I reviewed Dead Space, and I rank this up as I'd rank this up as my favorite blockbuster game since 2019's Control. So, but played and completed, I should say. I mean, there's some I still need to fully complete and capture, but either way, like I turned out to be a huge fan of it, even though this is my first big jump into the series. So yeah.
Yeah, so Lee is a newcomer to the Dead Space series. I am, I guess, sort of the contrast here in an old
Hmm.
hat.
Yeah, yeah.
Was around to play the original, and then Dead Space 2, and then be endlessly disappointed by the abomination that was Dead Space 3. Uh, and yeah, I was honestly a little surprised how much you enjoyed it. Not that
Hmm.
I wasn't expecting you to like it,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
a 9 out of 10 is something for sure. Some of those.
Yeah. Yeah, and I will make, like, you are correct in the sense that I this would count as my formal first time, quote unquote. Like I wouldn't say I was like a Dead Space virgin before this, because I did play the original with a buddy back then, but it was so limited. I have, and I'm so distanced from it that I
Right.
just didn't have, I couldn't even grasp like what was beyond the graphics, of course, like what was totally different besides Isaac talking. And I think the term cultural osmosis kind of fits, because I always knew about little things here and there with Dead Space, but just like, he talks, and he first starts talking in Dead Space 2, and just those kind of things. Like I knew those in the background before going in, but it was so limited in comparison.
Right. Um, so speaking of things that have changed, one thing I do kind of want to just touch on immediately is
Hmm.
the zero G changes,
Yeah.
which I'm not sure if you remember how that worked in the original, but uh, basically in the original 2008 game, it worked kind of almost like a ping pong mechanic, I guess would be the way to
Yeah.
put it.
Like
Um,
hook, like the hook shot in Ocarina of Time or something. Like just aim and then you fly there, in a sense, in a
Yeah,
single.
and when you get to like the wall that you land, so you just like jump from one wall to the next. When you get to that
Mm.
wall, it's like the new uh gravity, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Um, and I think the boss fight coming up in a bit will uh sort of demonstrate it. But I think it's a good example of how any change in a remake comes with both its blessings and its curses.
Sure.
Because you can very clearly see in points where the game was built for the old style of zero G.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and while it's a real quality of life boost most of the time, I think it
Hmm.
does kind of undercut the way that the some segments, especially the boss,
Mm.
were designed. Um, I want to have nothing. I'm fine with this. And it's always been sort of like an interesting topic for me, the subject of what uh, changes between a remake and the original.
Hmm.
Like some of those small techniques affect the game in ways that you don't really think about. because
Yeah.
it just wasn't designed for that originally. Well, one of the things that sort of struck me earlier this month, when another high-profile, remaster/remake came out, with Metroid Prime, was how the inclusion of like Spring Ball, which basically just lets you hop in a morph ball without having to place a bomb first, just
Oh,
destroys like
right.
some of the second while I
Sure.
how something like that just kind of like destroys the puzzle integrity of certain segments because they're designed on like you having to place a bomb first. And if you just hop
Right,
over
right.
the thing, then it's like, well, this puzzle where it's like you have to make accurate decisions or get killed by wow way.
Hmm. Yeah, and I noticed that in your review as well. It was a really interesting point because it was you just those minute details like what is it called again? Scene skipping, or I forget what.
Scan dashing.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And like those kind of tweaks can just make you both maybe you appreciate the original game a bit more, but or maybe have a newfound respect for what the remake's trying to do. Yeah, it's hard for me to say with Metroid Prime.
Yeah. And I don't want to just turn it into like a discussion on Metroid Prime, but suffice to say, it's sort of an interesting insight that anything that you change in a remake sort of inevitably comes with these ups and downs.
Sure.
Because the original was just built around that older style, and even if it seems like an obvious quality of life upgrade, there's probably something in the game that will suffer for it. Not to
Hmm.
say that makes it inherently bad, just that it's a give and take
Hmm.
trade-off.
Gotcha. Yeah. And
That said, one change in this game that I am very grateful for across the board is how much more useful all of the weapons are.
oh, sure.
So in the original Dead Space, there were a bunch of guns that there's no great way to say it. They were just really bad. And
Wow. Okay.
the horse gun was terrible.
I fucking that's so funny because I love that gun too in the remake.
Yeah, no, that and the I cannot believe I'm forgetting the name of this gun.
There's the line gun is
Not
like
the
the
line gun,
beam,
it's the
the force beam or whatever. It's not
contact
the
beam.
force beam.
Gosh,
Yeah, the
cannot
beam
believe I
gun.
forgot that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Is now at least in my admittedly non-professional experience, but it feels like the best weapon in the game.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, it's up there. I like you can melt faces with that thing too. I do like it. It definitely is a powerful weapon, but I don't know stuff like I just prefer the like combining the force gun with the Ripper,
that's
just like
fair. Yeah,
chainsaw. I don't know. It's such a the amount of detail that goes into like just butchering these things is insane to me.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to like say that it's definitively
Sure, sure.
the best or whatever. It's the improvement, like how good it became
Mm.
compared to like what it wasn't. Because in the original, it's like it's a very short, concentrated fire, and
Oh, okay.
like you have to just sit there charging it for like a couple
Oh,
seconds is harsh, but
that sounds terrible.
yeah, it's very God, I'm stuck on this slow floor.
Mhm.
It's very situational. You have to have
Right,
like a
right.
situation where someone is just very slowly approaching you, and
Mhm.
if you can hit them, it does a ton of damage. But
Right, right.
getting them to and still long enough to do that is the hard part. Another thing that has remained just as broken is stasis over here, which if you're not familiar with Dead Space, just kind of freezes people in place. You smack them for a while.
Exactly.
Easily my best friends on the impossible difficulty, because you get to save so much ammo by just holding people down and punching them over and over again. I think there's an upgrade for plasma cutter that just knocks them flat.
Yeah.
If you deal melee damage, it knocks someone flat. You can just stun lock people over and over with that.
Right.
So here's your enemy stomping.
Back up in your ass with the resurrection. Is the group harder than an erection that shows no affection?
All right. Sorry about whatever the heck that was. All right, I'm just gonna try and get in and out of here because this is just the game just spawns in like a billion enemies here, and goes nuts with it. I think one of the more interesting topics to talk about in this game is just the sheer frequency of enemy encounters, which I will admit I was a little surprised that it was a bigger deal for me than it was for you. And I don't mean that in a way that you just overlooked it as a flaw or whatever.
You're quietly judging me. I know.
No, not at all. I mean, different people have different tastes and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I would think about it is there's something about the placement and how slow I would tend to go, just because I don't know. I'm not the best when it comes to jump scares. So there's something about having your weapon ready and being pre-planned that just kind of added to the atmosphere. And it's kind of like one of those. It's one of those cases where hyper violent movies that are also kind of like art housey in a sense. Like that's kind of where I place the remake, in the sense that it's pretty much a splatter fest of all these necromorphs and different creatures, but there's that little je ne sais quoi, to sound pretentious, just in the design that I think really that's kind of one of those invisible qualities that won me over.
Right. And it might just be my perspective on things. I sort of come into horror games like this, especially, with sort of like a hope for atmosphere. Maybe even above anything else. So when there's as much combat, and I think I'm mostly talking about the later chapters here. It just sort of feels like it takes kind of away from the atmosphere. About to get grabbed by a tentacle.
I would agree with that. Not to spoil anything, but the final chapter, I would agree with that. That's kind of where everything felt a bit more, basic in its design. That just kind of lost me a little bit there. It was still exhilarating, and stuff like that, but it definitely didn't grab me when it came to the atmospheres as much as the Ishimura.
Right.
So I can see that, but I guess there could be maybe a recency bias for me, and this being kind of more fresh and new. There's there's kind of an appreciation that's maybe more long lasting for me, just because this is my first time like truly engaging with all these different necromorphs and the different variants and stuff like that. And you know, even when it's strained too much into combat, sometimes, at least with me in the intensity director,
Hmm.
it seemed reserved. It was just reserved enough to kind of dawdle that line for me.
That's fair.
Yeah. I did play on hard. I will say I did play and complete on hard, and I did want to save my do game plus for impossible when I get to it.
So I will warn you up front that you can't do impossible on New Game Plus.
Hmm.
Oh, I am.
I didn't know that.
Stasis? Did I not get a stasis refill? Am I?
I don't know.
Oh
I was a
no.
little distracted.
Yeah.
Do you have a stasis pack on you?
Definitely should. If I can remember the hotkey I set for it. There we go.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Or you get electrocuted.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a stasis station right there, huh?
Oh Jesus.
That happens.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
There's definitely one. There's one more somewhere. I don't know where it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to remember, because we're in the basically the green room, so to speak, the greenery section, or
The botany, yeah.
but yeah, botany. Thank you. And yeah, I feel like there's one like on the first floor, right after like a major combat section.
Oh, that's right. I got.
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm kind of remembering.
Yeah, I think it. If it's still alive, it's down there.
Yeah.
Not my concern anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Still this way, yeah. And then we got to go back through this thing.
So, what would you, beyond the weapons, what would you say is the most definitive improvement? Like, not without not that many trade-offs. I guess like you're talking about the 0G section.
Right. So I think by far the biggest improvement for me is the lighting in the game.
Right.
I don't know if you remember the original, but it was bright. For lack of a better word, everything was
True.
exceptionally well lit.
Yeah, well lit, brown, kind of brownish.
Yeah.
With that like, it wasn't as bad as other modern games at the time, but like the tawny visual filter, just kind of like draped over your eyelids, kind of deal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's definitely. I'm 100% with you there. Like, watch out.
Yeah, I'm getting my face chewed off.
At least you have your helmet to protect you.
Oh God, this is totally unrelated, but it annoyed me so much in Callisto Protocol when they just like guy just takes his helmet off for like the last third of the game or so for no reason. There's like a bunch of death animation. Yeah, Jacob.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet, but
sorry.
I do want to get one playthrough in for that one too. In the near future.
But yeah, I think the lighting has helped a lot with the atmosphere.
100%. Yeah.
It genuinely makes impossible like actually scary at points, because you can't like just see everything coming.
Yeah. Like sometimes they get, and it also works really well. You know, when you're dealing with the necromorph, the standard necromorph variant that is kind of like possessed, and it has those glowing um brown eyes or yellow eyes. Like I kind of noticed there was like a difference between two of them from the beginning, and then one's towards the middle and end. Am I remembering that right? Like I feel like
So there
there's
are
some,
like a bunch of different variants of them.
yeah.
Like
Maybe
the
it's the acid
individual.
spitter. I feel like maybe it's the acid spitter that one of them just has like their eyes are more distinct in like dark places. As far as I remember, I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of misremembering that detail, but it was something. There's something I noticed about that, like from compared to the beginning, or it could actually be the because things were maybe a tad bit more lit up at the beginning, so maybe I didn't notice it much. As
Yeah,
much.
sorry.
Hmm.
I will say
No.
that there's also like just a bunch of variants of like the regular default necromorphs as well.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like the just the general slasher enemies.
Yeah.
So you may have just like seen a tougher version of that that
I guess
has more
so.
of a
Yeah.
oh, leave me alone. I just want to get more stasis. Oh, you're gonna follow me in here, huh? All right. Well, you have forfeited your living privileges.
Absolutely.
Oh well. Um, the upgrade bench, now that we're here, has also been changed a bit.
Oh.
So one of the weird, like, old differences was that the upgrade tree, and I think this is present in Dead Space, like default Dead Space 2 as well. There would just be these blank nodes that didn't
Yeah.
do anything, but you just had to like fill them in to progress, for lack of a better word.
Oh. Mm,
Uh,
okay.
which kind of sucks. But you know, whatever, I guess. Now everything has a function in some way, and even if it's really just utterly useless, like increasing your
Yeah.
oxygen tank for your suit, um,
Yeah. Yeah. For
it's
sure.
it's. I like it a lot that everything has that everything feels like it's an upgrade. In some.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's that visual. There's kind of like a visual stimulus, and just like seeing that upgrade path just be dotted with all those the different colors. You know, if it's your health, it's like the red circles or oxygen pink and stuff like that. There's something about that just kind of like it's just like like I was mentioning with the basic stomping and being rewarded. There's something like Pavlovian or something about that just kind of cues you in and makes you want to keep finding those nodes and upgrading more and more.
Right. Another nice little effect, and I don't fully remember if this was present in the original, is that increasing either your health or your ammo on the ammo capacity, that is, on the workbench, gives you a full either health refill or clip of the weapon that you increase ammo for. So there's sort of a strategy element that comes into play.
Yeah, I've used that several times too. It was so helpful.
So you gotta keep going in the wrong side of this door.
Yeah, and I would also give credit. I'm kind of surprised I would give credit to this, but this is the first time I don't. I think the marketing for a singular tracking shot is not just all hype, I should say. I
Right.
guess that's the best way to like. That's a weird way to couch it. I know. Like I brought up in a couple reviews. Like I feel like it's one of the strangest new ways of saying cinematic without saying cinematic, and it kind of drove me up the wall a little bit when Norse God of War brought it up, and then Halo Infinite did. But this is like legitimately, as far as when it comes to the importance of maintaining an atmosphere, just to have this, you hit when you start the game, you just hit new game, you immediately see Nicole on the television, and and then the camera pans out to you on the ship.
Right.
It's just so like it just feels natural. You know what I mean? It's just there, and then that's it. And I think like instead of, I mean, I guess I'm gonna be raking it through the coals a bit here, but instead of making that such a huge thing with Norse God of War, and then compared to here, where like all the UI elements are diegetic, they're in the game world, compared to you hit pause every time you get an upgrade, or I mean most times you get an upgrade in Norse God of War, you have to go into a separate menu that's out of the game world. Like I don't know, there's something about that, and also a lot of different blockbusters of its time, like in the late 2000s, that were thinking of ways of naturally incorporating UI, that I appreciate a measure more than just saying we have a tracking shot.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. I do like the sort of I guess framed as a single shot thing that Dead Space pulls off. I guess I visually appreciate it anywhere.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I do think in this case it's also a little easier for it to win me over, as like it was worth it. Because I don't think Dead Space has to sacrifice as much as Norse God does at points.
Yeah, right. That's
I think I lined up sort of with you in the review, and I was gonna comment on it there, but I figured I'd just save it for this. I'm still a little like dubious in terms of like how much it really adds to the experience. But if it doesn't take anything away, then more power to you.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely it's. And I guess because the original, it's also kind of helpful because I guess every time you went on the tram, it was a loading screen, but it wasn't a disguise loading screen. Am I
right?
Okay, yeah. So that's what
I do like
heard
that a lot. I am
Yeah.
all for like any attempt to like disguise loading, as long as it can be done quickly.
Yeah, and that's and there were sorry to interrupt, but like just bringing that up, it reminded me of, remember the couple of times you're on the tram and you go somewhere, it just abruptly stops. Like it makes you think you're like, I was literally fooled into thinking I was going to have to fight something right in the close proximity of the tram, and that kind of elevated that one scene for me. But nope, and then it just keeps going. Like, oh, systems reset, and you just keep chugging along to your destination.
Yep. All right. Sorry to shift the topic once more. But we've seen examples of where I think the new zero-G mechanic works well. Here's one where I think it kind of undercuts the original experience. So if you haven't paid original Dead Space, go away, body. That is not. Come back.
Back, I say.
So this is the first boss of the game, or I guess first real boss, Leviathan. It's in the original is a fight where, because of the way the screw you too, because of the way the zero-G mechanic works, you're basically just stuck on these walls the whole time.
Yeah.
And you have to like bounce from one wall to the next to avoid it.
Right.
And it is super disorientating. And it's great.
While he's lunging, right? His little tentacle. Yeah. I can visually, like, just you describing like that, I could visually see what you're saying too.
So I do think that sort of like,
Officially.
sense of like, I think I was too late with that. Sense of like being like you're stuck inside a like a laundry machine. I don't have a better way to put it than that.
That's a good way to put it already.
Is really cool, and it only works with that older mechanic style.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I guess I'm totally ignorant of how that fight went, so like that's something I can definitely appreciate, and yeah, I will say even though as cool as that sounds, like overall, compared to just like casually moving back and forth. Which can be a little disorient, because you have to kind of like spin at times and reorient yourself, but not to the degree you're saying. So, for even though that may be a bad trade off in the sense, I do think it was worth it for all the other compounding elements where all the other like plain 0G sections. I mean, I just pretty much love all of them.
Yeah, I think I tend to line up with that view as well. I think on the whole it's worthwhile. I don't know,
But it's one thing to worry, like for me, maybe if I went back and played the original, it'd be
grabbing onto these random body parts floating around.
Yeah.
Thing.
Exactly. Like it'd be worth it for me to experience, just to have, compare and contrast them.
Right. But yeah, no, it's still probably not freaking again.
Gives me conniptions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
These.
Yeah.
Where are all these limbs coming from?
Jesus.
Go away.
Fucking hell.
Okay. I'm just gonna wait for it to get close to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can accidentally grab onto anything else. If it's too close. Since we're on sort of the subject of side effects, I think like oh, Isaac, you could reload sometimes else. One of the sort of unfortunate side effects of all weapons becoming more useful is that the game has become significantly easier as well. Say getting hit in the face repeatedly by the first boss game. But it means that like every bit of ammo you have is usually useful.
Yeah.
And like in the original Dead Space, it was just basically optimal to like if you got anything but I don't know. You can make some of the less optimal weapons work, but like force gun, plasma, not plasma, contact beam.
Yeah.
You might as well just sell it and get more ammo for a plasma cutter or ripper or whatever.
Sure.
And obviously the sale to buy ammo exchange rate sucks.
Yeah.
You're getting something out of it. You're just not getting as much as if you just use the ammo regularly, assuming it was useful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now you can't do that, so I'm gonna just end up at the end of the game with enough ammo to fund a small civil war in Latin America.
Hell yeah. I mean, I guess I can I can understand that to an extent. At least for me, I was always I didn't often have full health until the end was a bit more generous. And sometimes I would definitely strain on a few different weapons that I was used to, like pulse rifle.
Yep.
I feel like that could be a credit to the intensity director. I don't know for sure. I could be just overselling it, but I had trouble, because of my overuse, I had trouble finding ammo for that one in particular towards the, like some of the later chapters, and that kind of made me reappreciate a couple of other guns that weren't used as often. But then I kind of played around with them more and their secondary fire and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do like how the game sort of encourages more of a multi-gun approach now.
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
I like how it sort of adds to the feel of being an engineer, literally just picking up whatever you can find around to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Granted, you can still just go the whole way with one weapon if you really feel like it, but most people
Sure.
probably aren't going to do that on their first playthrough.
It's so rewarding. It's just so rewarding not to. Like, it's just, I couldn't, even though it is funny that they do have an achievement for, I think beating the whole game with just the plasma cutter.
Yep.
And then, it's a fun challenge and like stuff for streamers and speedrunners and stuff like that. But yeah, like for first time players, man, or just returning ones doing their first campaign, it's just absolutely rewarding. I just love I love when you can feel, at least for me, when my health is in the green but it's not 100%, and I'm starting to see some of my ammo reserves run low. It almost kicks in this kind of like desperation type thing that just sells it for me. I don't know.
Right.
It just clicks.
All right. So now I think we'll go on to a new segment that we're doing now that we actually have some comments / questions coming in. Figured we'd take some time to try and answer them.
Beep, 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 beep.
So yeah, Lee will provide our background music. In the future, if you feel like asking any questions or making comments or just telling us how much we suck,
yes, especially Paul, he's playing.
Yeah,
I would do better.
You can always tell me how
100%.
bad I suck at the game. Just feel to leave it either in a YouTube comment or on the VGChatz post where this gets uploaded, and we'll get around to it.
Yeah, 100%. And criticisms or not, or praises, whatever. We still appreciate either way. Like I'm pretty new to this. And I think Paul is too, as far as just broadcasting and not just Let's Plays, but also mixing in commentary with it. So, yeah. All comments appreciated, as long as they, don't go after, don't get too ugly, I guess. But
you're definitely allowed to say super mean things about Lee.
Goddamn.
I get my face bitten off by this guy.
Beautiful. Fight him back.
There's definitely someone behind me. All right.
Oh shit.
That explains that. Like, where am I getting hit from? So you want to go ahead with the comment we have for this month?
Yeah, I do. So this one comes back from our VGChatz on Stray, and it is from JC. It was posted on the main site, and it had to do with context sensitivity or prompt-based, movement and stuff like that. So I'll give it from, let me get from the top here. Anyway, the controls flow from that setup. Jumping is prompt-based because it would just be ridiculous to have a cat jumping around everywhere like he's Mario or something. Almost as ridiculous as a cat both knowing English and also being unable to speak it. Little things like that make the idea that your protagonist could be a real cat just persuasive enough to let you suspend your disbelief in the situation that he's in and other stuff. Persuasive enough for Olivia, my cat anyway. Oh, sorry. Okay. Point being that the context sensitivity here is done to enhance the immersiveness of the gameplay experience, and it succeeds for me. That's what's important about design choices like context sensitivity. I don't feel like there has to be just one right way to make every game. It's about whether a game's design choices aid what specifically it's trying to do that shapes its merits for me. And yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a very fair response.
Mhm.
One thing I want to say up front is that I was not trying to go into any sort of notification or I guess analysis of the more just straightforward context sensitivity within Stray as this is a bad thing and it should not be replicated. It's not something that I personally have tended to like in games in the past,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad for everything. Um,
Sure.
like I at least usually don't like real-time strategy games, but
Mhm.
there's plenty of games that benefit, at least as far as their core audience goes, for having those mechanics in there. And I wouldn't say that they're bad games just because they don't do the thing that I like.
Mhm.
I think I was also, and maybe I just didn't make a particularly good job of conveying this point. That sucks. Um, I think I was also more just trying to say that I have tended to dismiss context sensitivity, probably wrongfully at points, as just a lazy way of developers not finding ways to make their mechanics work across the entire game world. At least in the
Mhm.
past, it sort of felt like a cop out to me. Um,
Mhm.
and I think more than anything, I was just trying to note how I think Stray did make me change some of my opinions on that. Because a game where you pretty much just react through the world solely by working with it in a context-sensitive manner. There really aren't any mechanics to sort of deprive you from. So it works more on like I guess a chill sort of, I don't want to say fun game, because I did get
Mhm.
further in it and found some of those uh, creepier sections.
Speaking of body horror.
Yeah, but simpler to control game might be a way.
Sure.
Also, to sort of kind of relate to that back to Dead Space topic too much. But one thing I really like about the way it handles a lot of its puzzles is that everything's done with the kinesis module. Um,
Mhm.
so like you don't like press a button near a thing to start a battery. You like manually grab the battery and insert it yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know you're jumping already transitioning to Dead Space because I did want to
No,
say
I
one
sorry.
thing on Stray.
Yeah, I don't
So
want to just transition off from that entirely. That was just a side.
okay. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, gotcha. So yeah, I guess like I totally understand that perspective, and I guess I'm I'm not 100% on board in the sense that I don't really mind that inherent ridiculousness of a cat kind of having the abilities of Mario, just kind of boing around and just um, do something a little bit goofy like that. I do think there is even if you're not totally, even if that disrupts the immersiveness, I don't know, like there's something about the the freedom of a cat inherently that can kind of lend itself to also just going your own way as the player, and just testing out different things versus like having the permission to do so. But it's not it's not that much of a bugbear with Stray in particular, because I can it has an idea about what it's trying to be. It has it has a full-fledged narrative, and so pacing has to be considered and all that type of stuff, which I can totally respect. But yeah, I guess a good middle ground for me would be, and I think I brought up in the review, is what would happen if you could do a few little things in the environment that could influence more like context sensitive jumps and stuff like that, like little platforms for you to go onto. and I kind of wish that was explored a bit more. But yeah, like it's not a one of the original sins or anything like that. So
Yeah, I think I sort of can see where you're coming from with that there too. I wouldn't have minded like the possibility of failing
yeah,
maybe some of those jumps because I mean I know JC you bring up the real life example of your cat.
Mhm.
Um, I have a couple of cats too, and as graceful as they can be sometimes, they can also be decidedly not at points. I have seen them face plant and miss jumps more times than I can count.
So they don't always land on their feet.
They do not. Well, they're pretty good about landing on their feet, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's just it may not be landing on their feet on the
yeah,
thing that they aimed for.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, oh, jeez.
Oh,
I am
Jesus.
in a corner.
Oh god. Face him down, Paul. Don't let him get to you.
Oh, fuck.
Don't get gored. Whatever you do.
I'm ever since Leviathan, I've not been playing this well.
Yeah.
But I'm going to falsely attribute that to commentating and not my own lack of skill.
Dang it. Trying to get away with it, I see.
God, like that. How do I just let that hit me?
Oh god, Paul.
One other small change that I'll note briefly is the little like I don't know, they're like insects or something
Mm-hmm.
that just kind of crawl over the floor at you when those
Oh, from the bloaters or the
they do way less damage in the remake than they did, which is very nice.
Yeah, like they're a good. You're talking about the little creepy crawlers, not the one where like the guy can be the necromorph can be ripped apart and then it's like its head and it's everything else is coming after you.
Yeah, like the little spiders that just swarm.
Oh,
me,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So they're like they're the perfect pest. I think I'd put them in that kind of category. You know, like they're able to swarm you pretty quickly, and they don't. There is a risk of losing health, but it's finely tuned and just enough to not be like insanely punishing.
Yeah, that's how it is now. It was not that way in the original.
Oh god.
They had like more than like a couple of them get off you. You were losing. I mean, you were at a serious risk of dying, and you were easily losing like 4 or 5 slots of energy. Their damage output has been turned back significantly.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, I think we're coming up kind of close to an hour.
Yep.
A little short of. We covered most of the things that I wanted to talk about for Dead Space. Is there anything left that you wanted to mention?
We talked about a lot of quality of like I guess if there's one thing you can always kind of appreciate with remakes in particular, like how you're talking about the small critters or just simple things like the lighting.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I'm worried about trailing off, but basically there's something about those little things when they all concurrently come together, you know, that you can kind of tell that the developer, you know, it wasn't even visceral, it was motive trying to enhance and respect Visceral's legacy. Even though I'm pretty ignorant of the original, like you've told me a bunch of new info I didn't know about. even without knowing that stuff, you can just tell when a game is passionately scoured for potential ways to fix it, or just do tweaks that make it its own thing once again, but at the same time making players like you and original fans just fondly remember it. And I there's something about that I can't help but appreciate in these types of projects.
Right. No, I do. Whatever little quirks I may have with the way that things change, unless it's like just a straight negative, I would usually prefer that they do change, because it makes it more of its own thing, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, even if I don't like the new one as much, which I definitely do in this case, I certainly think this is the best version of Dead Space.
Right.
And it's not particularly close, frankly. Even if I were to not believe that, I would rather have I guess a more different experience.
Sure.
That doesn't just feel like the same game I've played several times before.
Yeah, I can, and I can. That kind of brings me back to another game, but yeah, like the Last of Us Part 1, I guess, is like the more of like dawdling in the middle compared to like here and story, and we didn't even touch on like story changes, but I mean those, as far as I've heard from people, like those are significant beyond just the Isaac talking.
Right. There are a few nice little story changes as well. A couple that I'll complain about too, but when don't I complain about something?
Right. Yeah.
But all right. So this is Dead Space. If anyone has any comments on it, feel free to send them to us, and we'll go about answering them as well for the next episode. Outside of that, unless you got anything else for the order, I think this is a pretty good time to end it up, at least before I get killed by this stupid thing.
Maybe we should just quietly watch you get killed, and then we'll just laugh at you afterwards.
Sure. This is actually probably, at least in my opinion, the hardest room in the game, but it is not because of anything that I'm doing currently.
Yeah. But no, I guess we can wrap it up there, because it's like we touched on a lot of stuff. I think we expanded our minds a little, and
we learned a lot and became bigger people along the way.
Yes, exactly. Because we're unlike the beasts that you're fighting, Paul. We're not zombies. We can.
Move this man!
That was exceptionally deep. That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Hey, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.